Functions of the language we speak and different speaking styles. The connections that humans develop with each other are different from those of all other living things because they have mastered cognitive linguistic communication. Language, which can be a tool for us to share ourselves with others, has the power to build and destroy societies. Being human often means mastering a complex grammatical system in order to communicate effectively with others. We learn to communicate before we speak, and as we get older, we learn ways to use language to convey what we want to say in complex words and sentences. Of course, not all communication occurs through language. But mastering one language certainly helps speed up the process of healthy communication. The main function of a language is to use that language. It gives us the ability to communicate thoughts, ideas, and feelings to others as quickly as possible. We can understand language better by looking at its other basic functions. 1. Notification function. The informative function of language occurs when we use language to convey any information. The essence of this job is to inform others by clarifying facts. 2. Great job. Another fundamental function of language is the function of expression. It gives us ways to communicate our feelings, reactions, and attitudes to another person, or ourselves. 3. Help function. The guiding function of language is to help us direct or command. For example, it provides the ability to tell ourselves or someone else what to do in any given situation. Using the language we speak in a way that allows the audience to fully understand our thoughts. To be economical when choosing our words, that is, to speak without ignoring the level of consciousness of those who listen to us. Choosing a narrative based on compassion away from hateful words. Speaking without engaging in power games to manipulate listeners are the building blocks for using language effectively. There are many different methods in which we can convey what we want to convey when speaking. While some of these styles are unique to our personality and different from what we usually talk about, we can adapt certain styles for ourselves depending on the situation. Direct and indirect patterns. Direct transmission is a way of using language to tell someone exactly what you want to say. Indirect transmission uses words or types of communication that have an indirect meaning to show that we feel a certain way. If you've ever argued with someone, you've probably tried both approaches to the language. Personal and contextual styles. These two linguistic approaches are a bit more complex. In general, personal style refers to an individual's personal lifestyle, which is informal and focused on that person. Contextual patterns mean language changes depending on the context of the situation. For example, a professor might use a contextual style when lecturing his students, while he might use a personal style when talking to friends and colleagues. Ineffective use of the language we speak can be a problem for all of us. That's why it's important to pay attention to how we use language in any given situation. Use the appropriate language. Using appropriate language doesn't just mean avoiding foul language. There may be times when that's really appropriate. Using language that is appropriate for the audience means using language that they can understand, relate to, and interact with. Use lively language. Using lively language can mean using more imagination and adjectives to describe something as clearly as possible. Use inclusive language. Inclusive language means using language that does not exclude anyone. For example, it can be spoken to include people who do not identify with a particular group. It is also racist, gendered, hateful, arrogant, prejudiced, etc. It also means avoiding languages. Some thinkers have criticized the use of language in styles, contexts, and inclusivity because they argue that communicating in this way means falling into the trap of so-called political correctness. Political correctness is a term used to describe expressions, ideas, and practices that are used with care so as not to harm people of different languages, religions, cultures, and races, a pit we all fall into today. In general, honesty leads us to accuse people of being insensitive on the one hand, and to adopt an approach that criticizes and belittles them for being overly sensitive. On the other, anyone can see for himself the right to impose his moral truth on another. If people reaching the masses do not use such language, they can often become victims of a lynching culture. From another point of view, although honesty has faced strong opposition on the grounds that it is against free speech, it also plays an important role in reviewing the discourses of societies that promote discrimination. As in every other issue, the concepts of balance, compassion, and respect can be the builder of the solution. The levels of consciousness are just to save the day, live without thinking, obey without questioning, discriminate, overcome, defeat, oppress, etc. As we live a life stuck in stereotypes, we add content to all the concepts we get through these verbs. However, being able to use language effectively for speaking is also an excellent tool for learning about deep and invisible connections. There is a wisdom of its own that can only be shared with those who have learned to listen to what is being said. Concepts often lose their true meaning and get their share of polarization. Words become unsettled, two-faced, vague, and wander into many dimensions. That is why we have to relearn the ability to perceive each word from all dimensions simultaneously.